I want to talk about a story that Jesus told, a short one, only a few lines long, but it hits harder than almost anything else in the Gospels. And I think the reason it hits so hard is because it is not really about religion at all. It is about something we do every single day without even noticing we are doing it. Two men walk into the temple to pray. One is a Pharisee, a respected religious leader, a man who follows every rule, who fasts twice a week, who gives away a tenth of everything he earns. The other is a tax collector, a man his own community looks down on, a man who works for the occupying government and who probably takes more money than he should. On paper, one of these men is clearly the good guy and one of these men is clearly the bad guy. And that is exactly the trap Jesus wants us to walk into, because he is about to flip the whole thing upside down. So here is what happens. The Pharisee stands up and he prays, but listen closely to what he actually says, because the words matter more than they seem to at first. He says, "God, I thank you that I am not like other men, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector standing over there. I fast twice a week, I give a tenth of my income. Look at everything I have done for you." Now on the surface, this sounds like gratitude, it sounds like a man thanking God. But if we slow down and really listen, we notice something strange. He is not actually talking to God at all, he is talking about himself. And he is using God as an audience for his own resume. Meanwhile, the tax collector stands far off. He will not even lift his eyes to heaven. Meanwhile, the tax collector stands far off. He will not even lift his eyes to heaven. He beats his chest and all he says is, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." That is it. No list of good deeds, no comparison to anyone else, just a raw and honest admission that he is not okay, that he needs help, that he cannot fix himself on his own. And Jesus ends the story by saying that this man, the tax collector, went home justified before God, and the Pharisee did not. Which means the man everyone in that culture would have despised is the one who walked away right with God, and the man everyone would have admired is the one who did not. Now here is why this story makes people so uncomfortable. And I mean genuinely uncomfortable, not just a little bit challenged. It is because most of us, if we are honest with ourselves, live our whole lives like the Pharisee. We just do it quietly, inside our own heads where nobody else can hear us. Think about how often you compare yourself to someone else to feel better about where you stand. Maybe you look at a friend who is struggling financially and you quietly think, "At least I am not that bad with money." Maybe you look at someone who lost their temper in public and you think, "At least I would never act like that." Maybe you scroll through social media and you measure your own life against someone else's mistakes, and somewhere deep inside, without even meaning to, you build yourself up by tearing someone else down in your mind. This is not really about being religious or not being religious. This pattern shows up everywhere, in workplaces, in families, in friendships, in how we raise our kids and how we judge other parents raising theirs. Psychologists actually have a name for part of what is happening here. It is called downward social comparison. And it means we often boost our own self-esteem by comparing ourselves to people we see as worse off than us. It feels good in the moment, it gives us a little hit of superiority, but it is a fragile kind of good feeling because it depends entirely on someone else looking bad so that we can look good. The Pharisee in this story was not lying about his actions. He really did fast, he really did give away a tenth of his income. Those were real and even admirable things to do. But his heart had quietly shifted from serving God to proving himself better than other people. And he probably never even noticed the shift happening because it happens so slowly and so naturally that we rarely catch ourselves in the act. That is what makes this story so uncomfortable. It is not describing some obvious villain we can easily distance ourselves from. It is describing the quiet, respectable, hard-working person who has convinced themselves they are doing everything right. The tax collector, on the other hand, had nowhere left to hide. His job made him an outsider, his choices had real consequences, and by the time he walked into that temple, he had run out of excuses and run out of comparisons to make himself feel better. All he had left was the truth, and the truth was that he needed mercy. And here is the strange gift hidden inside that painful moment. Because having nowhere to hide is actually what let him be honest, and being honest is what let him actually connect with God instead of performing for him. I think this is where the story becomes less about two men who lived 2,000 years ago and more about a mirror we can hold up to ourselves right now. How often do we perform for other people instead of being honest with them? How often do we build a version of ourselves that looks good from the outside, while something very different is happening on the inside? We post the highlight reel, we talk about our wins, we quietly leave out our doubts and our failures and our fears, because showing those feels risky. It feels like it might cost us the respect we have worked so hard to earn. But the tax collector shows us something different. He shows us that real change, real growth, actually starts at the exact moment we stop pretending. Not the moment we finally get everything right, but the moment we stop performing and admit where we actually stand. There is something almost relieving about that idea, if you sit with it long enough, because it means you do not have to have it all figured out before you are allowed to be honest. You do not have to earn the right to ask for help. You just have to stop pretending you do not need it. I also think it is worth noticing what Jesus does not say in this story. He does not say the Pharisee is a terrible person who should be punished, and he does not say the tax collector's past does not matter. What he shows us is much simpler and honestly much more unsettling. He shows us that pride quietly closes a door that honesty keeps open. The Pharisee walked in confident and walked out unchanged, while the tax collector walked in broken and walked out different. The outward status of these two men never switched, but something invisible inside each of them did. So maybe the real question this parable leaves us with is not which of these two men we resemble on paper, because most of us would like to say neither. We are not that obviously religious and not that obviously sinful. The real question is which one we resemble in the quiet, unscripted moments of our lives, when no one else is listening, when we are alone with our own thoughts, when we catch ourselves comparing, judging, or quietly ranking ourselves above someone else to feel a little more secure. In the end, this story is uncomfortable because it does not let us stay comfortable. It takes away the easy option of feeling superior and replaces it with the much harder option of being honest. And maybe that discomfort is exactly the point, because growth rarely starts with feeling proud of where we stand. It starts with finally admitting where we actually are.